we were always told whenever an F-16 package was given to Pakistan that they could not be compatible with nuclear weapons. Your intelligence proved otherwise. Could you tell us about that?
Well, we're jumping ahead in Richard's life, but that was when I was at the office of the Secretary of Defense, and I met a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for covered that region, the Near East, named Skip Ghanim. He later became the ambassador to Kuwait, and I briefed him on the intelligence on Pakistan nuclear program, and his response was, "This charade must stop." What he
Mhm.
said. And he then tasked me with drafting a full assessment of Pakistan's nuclear weapons program, looking at everything, delivery systems, weapons development, you name it. And I did for our new Secretary of Defense, Dick Cheney,
Cheney,
for
yeah.
an upcoming National Security Council meeting on Pakistan. So I wrote that paper, you know, and a guy who was the regional action officer for Pakistan um, in another part of the Pentagon. He was breathing down my neck to change my assessments, which were quite in line with my colleagues over at Langley, etc. And I actually had DIA prepare a separate assessment just on the F-16 delivery issue, which, to put it in a nutshell, there had been studies for years inside the intelligence community by experts like national laboratories, etc., that we knew all about the Pakistani nuclear weapons design, and we knew all about the F-16s, as you could imagine. And we knew that the F-16s were capable of delivering the Pakistani nuclear weapons as they existed at that time, without any doubt. It's a hard engineering question, period. It had been looked at by the engineers and the physicists, not by me. So there was that. And that's
Yet
when,
the government went ahead with the sale.
well, it's more complicated than that. I mean, what happened was a few months later, I walked into the office of that guy in charge of the sales, Mike McMurray, I think his name was, and he handed me a copy of testimony that was being delivered literally down on Capitol Hill as we sat there, and you can read it yourself, and it was a new. Skip Ghanim had left to become the ambassador to Kuwait. This position at the Pentagon was traditionally occupied by somebody on rotational from the State Department. So another State Department guy, he had just come over, maybe days earlier, and he was handed this testimony and was delivering it. He didn't know. That guy didn't know that he was lying. McMurray and others had written the testimony, I think, and as came out later in court, and you know, I said, well, this is a lie, you know, and walked out of the room and showed it to my bosses and said they're lying, you know. By this point, we've gotten way, way ahead of ourselves here in my life in the government. But, by this point, I was ready to get out of that place. I mean, I never seen anything like it. Like the Office of the Secretary of Defense, you know, Cheney, Libby, Paul Wolfowitz, Steve Hadley, you know, these
The
were my
neocons.
bosses. Yeah, who later, a few years later, moved to the White House
Yeah.
and lied us into a war in Iraq over
Yeah.
non-existent WMDs. These guys, they like to destroy intelligence people who tell them things that they don't want to hear. Right. I got the first taste of it. Right.